know celiac disease can impact our children in a number of ways. There is a common belief in the medical industry and within parent communities that symptoms of celiac disease are localized to the gut only. This is incorrect. I see children who don't complain of any gut symptoms but still test positive for celiac disease. Their symptoms extend way beyond all the way to their behaviour. In fact, studies have shown that children with celiac disease who've been labelled with ADHD or ASD had a significant improvement in their behaviour when switching over to a gluten-free diet. Very interesting. Join me today as I share my top 12 signs and symptoms when it comes for looking for celiac disease in your child. Hi, I'm Sammy, clinical nutritionist, stepping right out of my clinic onto your screen. I'm on a mission to help families to get to know their bodies better, to nourish themselves while having fun. Before I share my top signs and symptoms, it's important to know what celiac disease is. It is classified as an autoimmune disease in which whenever anything with gluten, which is a protein found in things like wheat, rye, and barley, when that is consumed, that person's immune system attacks their body, particularly in the small intestines. Those small intestines are lined with finger-like little hairs called villi, and this is what sucks up all those nutrients from the foods that we digest. But with celiac disease, those villi-like little hairs are actually worn down. And this negatively impacts on the way our children's body absorb nutrients from food. A quick disclaimer, this is general advice based on my own case studies, clinical experience, and research. We are all unique, and it is highly recommended that you seek your own professional advice for your child based on their individual needs. So here are my 12 signs and symptoms. Number 1, delayed growth. With poor nutrient intake due to poor absorption in the gut, this can lead to things like a deficiency in key minerals and vitamins required for bone health and development. In fact, there are studies out there that show children with undiagnosed celiac disease who are consuming gluten in their diet. They show signs of delays in both bone maturation and mineralization. When they're put on a gluten-free diet over a period of time, these children were able to maintain their growth rate, and when those nutrient deficiencies were corrected, as their gut healed over time, they could catch up. A link to the study is in the notes below. When it comes to our older kids, they are going through puberty, and this is a really important time for them to reach peak bone mass. The higher peak bone mass, the less risk for things like osteoporosis and bone breaks as they become adults. Number 2, loss of appetite. Now, there are a lot of reasons as to why your child may be losing their appetite. However, celiac disease can be an underlying cause. Again, with fewer nutrients going in, where we see deficiencies in things like iron and zinc, this can lead to a child's poor appetite. Zinc in particular is required for stomach acid production, as well as plays a massive role in our taste buds. With poor appetite and less nutrients going in, this leads to my 3rd sign, poor weight gain or malnourishment. Number 4, digestive upset. With the immune system working overtime and damaging that gut lining, those little villi that we spoke of that suck in those nutrients, they also produce something called digestive enzymes and juices into the gut lining to help with digestion. Without that happening effectively, the food that your child is consuming ferments, causes things like bloating, foul gas, unfortunately, chronic constipation, diarrhea, a little bit of nausea, vomiting, and bloating, particularly after eating things with gluten in them. We're also seeing really poor stools, as the ability to break down things like fats is causing a bit of ickiness in that department. As a parent, I'm sure you're aware if you're smelling the odors, but celiac disease isn't always the case. Your child may have just eaten something that their body didn't agree with, or too much of a certain type of food. Number 5, anemia. Now, I'm not just talking about iron deficiency anemia here. Anemia can also be from low B12 and folate. And celiac disease can often be at the core of anemia because, as we mentioned, with those villi not sucking in those nutrients, we're seeing low levels of B12, folate, and iron. I often find that parents, while they're trying to treat the anemia, The problem is actually the celiac disease that they need to treat, and their child will continue to experience iron deficiency or B12 and folate deficiency until this one is corrected. Number 6, mood and irritability. My children are moody and irritable quite often, and it can often just be from lack of sleep or something simple going on in their life. But if it's constant and it's actually impacting on their everyday life and your everyday life, it could definitely be a symptom of celiac disease. Our body needs to have great digestion and absorption to be able to break down proteins and make something called amino acids. We use those amino acids to make things that are called neurotransmitters, which are what make those happy, motivated, calm feelings within our body. And on top of that, if our gut isn't digesting things well, it's going to cause an overgrowth of bacteria, and too much bad bacteria in the gut can lead to irritability, moodiness, anxiousness, and all kinds of feelings. There was a study that was actually found that major depression and other mental health disorders were more common in a group of those with celiac disease than in the control group. And this brings me to my 7th sign and symptom, behavioral issues. And when I'm talking behavioral issues, we're looking at the labels of ASD and ADHD. It has been shown that those with ADHD in particular have higher cases of celiac disease. It was shown when those children were put on a gluten-free diet, the ones with celiac disease, that checklist of symptoms was significantly reduced. And they believe that the results suggest that we should be testing for celiac disease in those who are labeled with ADHD. You can have a look at the study in my notes below. If you have found any of this information helpful so far, please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and comment below. Number 8, skin issues. This is one I get a lot of parents asking me about. The skin condition I'm talking about is dermatitis herpetiformis, which is red, itchy bumps, particularly on the backs of the elbows, the scalp, the buttocks, and around their torso. If your child constantly has itchy red bumps, this can definitely be a sign of celiac disease. Work in with your medical practitioner because it may actually be something else. And this goes for all the signs and symptoms that I'm sharing with you today. Number 9, oral hygiene. Now, if your kids are anything like mine, they don't brush their teeth as often as I would like. But this isn't what I'm talking about. Our digestive system impacts our whole body, from here all the way to there. And this is something that I discuss with kids in my workshop. If you've got gut issues and it's not breaking down and digesting properly, it's going to ferment and bubble and cause a bacterial overgrowth. And in our mouth, we also have that bacteria living. When it comes to celiac disease, with poor breakdown of foods within our gut, this can lead to oral issues, bad breath, coating on the tongue, discoloration of your child's teeth, which happens over time, canker sores. Number 10, genetics. If the parent or grandparent or brother and sister have been tested positive for celiac disease or another autoimmune illness, this is a warning marker. If they are showing signs and symptoms to do with celiac disease and haven't been tested, this is something that I would definitely look at. But when it comes to kids, it's not that easy to test. A lot of children are afraid of getting needles, and when it comes to the gold standard of testing, doing that endoscopy or a biopsy, a lot of kids don't want to do that if they don't have to. There are genetic screenings that you can do for celiac disease to see if they do carry the gene, but the percentage of them getting it may not actually be that high. But again, epigenetics definitely play a role. Just because someone carries the gene does not mean that gene will be expressed and that they are destined to get it. It just means to be aware and to notice whether they have a reaction to gluten over time and they're showing a lot of signs and symptoms and malnourishment. Number 11, headaches. Headaches in children is not normal. It's their body's way of telling them something's going on. And when it comes to celiac disease, there are studies out there that show there are an increase in headaches in those with celiac disease. A gluten-free diet has been shown to be very effective when it comes to treating headaches and migraines. That being said, headaches can be from something as simple as dehydration, a lack of certain nutrients going in, such as magnesium. It could be related to their vision and getting their eyes tested, or a range of other things going on. Headaches are not normal in children, and it is important to get to the core issue of what is going on there. And number 12, my last sign and symptom that I'm going to share with you guys today. No symptoms. What? There is a thing called silent celiac. And when it comes to kids, many of them struggle to tell us that there's something going on. I know in my clinic, I'm not sure how to express themselves when they're talking about symptoms and things going on in their body. And often we don't realize something is going on until we get markers back that show signs of iron deficiency and B12 deficiency. If your kids are failing to thrive and you're not getting anywhere, perhaps celiac disease is something that you may need to rule out. Leaving celiac disease untreated over time will cause further complications in life. They're not getting those nutrients into their body, and that's going to lead to systemic issues and a range of things going on. If you do suspect celiac disease in your child, it is important to seek professional support with someone who can test your child correctly. There are a number of different ways to test for celiac disease, and some of them are not as effective as others. I recommend doing it as soon as you can to stop it in its tracks and start to fix and correct your child's gut lining, and as a result, their overall health. I know you guys have so many more questions that you've been throwing at me. What's the difference between celiac disease and gluten sensitivity? What's the best standard of testing? What to do when your child has been diagnosed with celiac disease? Because that in itself can be quite stressful as a parent. Remember to like and subscribe, and to check out my next video on testing with celiac disease.